welcome to the IdeaCast interview series, episode number 133. My guest in this episode is Dr. Jacquelynn Wolfheart, and Jacquelynn is a psychologist specializing in trauma recovery with a dedicated focus on supporting trafficking survivors and children. She is a passionate advocate for mental health awareness. Jacquelynn combines her expertise with a creative flair to empower others through storytelling, education, and community engagement. As you have perhaps noticed, if you have the YouTube version of this conversation, I did put a warning in the beginning, and if you're listening to this on Spotify, I will state that this requires your discretion. If you are sensitive to discussions about child trauma and violence and abuse, this is a deeply, deeply disturbing conversation in some parts, and I will advise that if you are not prepared to hear or see, if you're watching the YouTube version, some very distressing anecdotes, I would suggest that you skip this conversation. I would encourage someone who's in the mental health field, psychology, or perhaps cognitive science. This may be a good conversation, but if you're sensitive, I would advise that maybe you wait for the next episode to come out. I really enjoyed this conversation with Jacquelynn, and I learned quite a bit. We also talk about the Wolf Media Fest coming up, so it was a very good conversation, but there's just one or two moments in the conversation that I will strongly caution that you, if you're sensitive or if you haven't resolved trauma, or you're going through the process of resolving trauma, that you perhaps avoid. Otherwise, please enjoy my guest, Jacquelynn, and as I did. Thank you very much for being here too. I'd like to welcome Dr. Jacquelynn Wolfheart to the IdeaCast interview series, and we're going to have a hybrid conversation. I'd like to talk about something that's imminent in Jacquelynn's life and possibly mine, because I plan on attending and helping in any way that I can. But we'll save that for just a second. First of all, welcome, Jacquelynn. Glad to have you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you, because we had a pre-meet, as I try to do with most of my guests, and it was a lovely conversation. Really got me inspired, got me looking into what we're going to reveal in a minute, and I'm really excited for it. And part of that is because we're very geographically aligned. We're
Yes.
adjacent to one another. So we're both Central Florida people. So anyway, welcome to the YouTube audience. I always get distracted.
Hi,
Welcome.
everybody.
Yeah, welcome everyone, especially my subscribers. So glad to have you guys there. So let's unpack the big mystery here that you are putting on a media festival. And so
Yes.
let's talk about that for a little while.
Yeah, this media festival. So I'm actually taking over. Somebody else already had a film festival, but they were going to stop their film festival. And me and my husband decided, let's see if we can take it over. But we wanted to expand it.
Right.
We wanted to give more, not just films, but other outlets a way to be celebrated and get some attention on them as well. So we expanded it to all types of writing, podcasts as well. We tried to get some game creators. So far that hasn't taken off, but fingers crossed it will, because I just think of how much art really goes into that, how much creativity goes into that. So I'm hoping for that. We have photographies. We have a really awesome photographer coming from California, who will be doing some stuff at the festivals as well. But we have photography competition as part of our festival. I feel like I'm missing, social media content. That's one I thought would be much bigger than it, but it hasn't, I can't say it hasn't taken off, but it's gone in a different route because it's fans submitting their favorite social media creator.
Okay.
But to me, social media content, a lot of it has become these little tiny movies in a way, and a great way to share information. So we thought, let's honor and celebrate these people as well. So it's kind of going in all these directions, and I have good feelings about it, and I'm excited about it. So.
Okay, cool. And yeah, and that's novel. And I think that's opening up inclusivity too, because I'm old. I don't do TikTok. I don't do social media per se the way younger folks do it.
Right.
So that extension has been afforded to younger folks is absolutely critical, because I'll speak for myself as being an older person. I want to be a good steward or a good ancestor or whatever you want to call it, the elder that really wants to see the next generation flourish. And so what you're doing, I think, speaks to that because it's not often that, let's just say, Gen Z can have the resources to organize something
Right.
big, and so that they can be included is just really incredible. And even Gen
Yeah.
A, I mean, the young ones, that are coming on
Yeah. Which
board
I
can.
have both of those. I have children in both those
Okay,
categories. And
good, good.
what can we do now that's gonna set them up for a good future? Because if they have a good future, old lady me is gonna have a great life.
Yeah,
So,
I have a selfish interest because when I'm old and infirm, I want to make sure
right?
somebody either doesn't hate me and resent my generation, or they're
Right.
confident, that they really are invested in everything. And there's cultures that engage in filial piety, and I think not to get on a tangent about our culture, but I'd love to see a renaissance of that, where we can see look to the elders. And if they're jerks, forget it. If they're old curmudgeon-y, fuddies or whatever, that's fine. But if there's some really gems of people out there that are in their
Yeah.
70s or 80s, extract from them. They want to give. And so anyway, so
Right.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's awesome that there's going to be such a diversity in that rather than just a film festival. And I had a funny thought when you're talking about like social media content creators and you think about something like TikTok, and I'm stereotyping it here, but I was just imagining like a TikTok film festival and it's like 30-second movies, and it's like clap, clap, clap,
There
next, clap, clap.
there are actually film festivals already that do like
I
one
love it.
minute films. So and I feel like these social media people need to get in on that because there is
Yeah,
some really mind-blowing social media content out there. They should be in these festivals.
right.
They are doing amazing things already and they're not getting they're not being thought of as a filmmaker. They're getting
Yeah,
thought of as an influencer and we kind of
yeah.
like degraded that term like, oh, you're an
Oh,
influencer, but
oh, I don't like that
yeah,
term.
like, oh, that's what you are. But really,
Yeah.
you are doing amazing creative things. You're inspiring a lot of people. So you should be celebrated too. And that's, we want to be part of that. And
Right.
we're trying to take nothing in return
Yeah.
other than, good gratitude and feeling good from what we're doing. But we just want to do our best to like flourish others in their growth. And it's
Mhm.
awesome to be a part of that and be able to do that. I'm in a good position in life where I can do stuff like that. So that's, I'm
Yeah.
blessed.
Yeah, for to be in the position and then to act on it and instantiate it is just, hats off. And I'm not lauding any praises on myself, but if there's anything I can ever do to be a helpful person, and I can afford the time, then yeah, I think it's incumbent on anyone who wants to see a betterment of our culture or, whatever you want to call us, our species or that we can do that and roll our sleeves up and be a part of a solution-oriented culture or ecosystem of mind or whatever it is.
Right.
And to go back to the vignettes, the short films, if you can make an impact in 1 minute, that's to me is better filmmaking than a 90 minute, I mean,
Right.
90-minute documentaries have their place and there's so many of them that are awesome, but I'm trying to imagine that like if you can really impact me or someone else in a minute, that's good content creation. That's really
Yeah,
amazing.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
okay. Let's see. So this will be in Melbourne, Florida, and this will
Melbourne,
be in
Florida.
April towards the no, late March, right? I think it's
In mid-April, it's actually the 18th, 19th, and 20th
okay.
of
Thank you.
April. And yeah, so Melbourne, Florida, so just about an hour or less from you, not too
Hmm.
far from you, and then in a different direction, about an hour away from Orlando. So yeah, I hope it's going to be great. We have a lot of things planned
Hmm.
within the festival, so there will be film screenings, there will be
Okay.
book readings, there will be poetry readings. There will be authors there and actors there and filmmakers there. We're doing a live kid comedian show. So it's
Hmm.
for stand-up kids, a show for kids by kids. That's actually going to be recorded in front of a live audience and that's going to be distributed. So these kids are getting their comedy out there. We have lots of live performances going on. We're going to try to do a 5K as well for
Mm,
the Air Force. I can't even think what the charity is called right now. Air Force Assistance Program,
nice.
which
Nice.
helps families of military families
Okay.
and children. People might not realize this, but April is Month of the Military Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month. So and Awareness Month. So we're trying to do some good work for kids during that month as well. So we'll have a force. in the middle of still trying to set up the 5K, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen.
Okay.
We'll have a pet fashion show going on. We have DJs coming in for the 5K. There'll be like a dance party as well. I have some
Nice.
other really fun ideas I want to do, but I haven't figured out how to execute them. But I really want kids to come and have like a fun time, a safe time,
Hmm.
learn something, grow a little bit, have parents learn something. And then even if you don't have kids or you're not a parent, like you should come too because there's something for you. We're really trying to make it like very inclusive for everybody. So
Hmm.
lots of things planned, lots of things planned.
Oh, I love it. And as somebody who's hyperactive, it really speaks to me that there'll be so much going on, and
Yeah,
there's just be this just this constituency that like you said, is diverse, and that people will benefit regardless of what your background or your tastes
right,
are.
right.
Yeah, there'll be something there for you. Now, to the audience, I will have all pertinent information for Wolf Media Fest, as well as you have a website. Well, I want to talk about your therapeutic work and your clinical work in a little bit. And so, to the audience, in a little bit, we will be transitioning over to another conversation. But yeah, all relevant links will be down below. Now, one question that came to mind in the production of this festival, will there be streaming events, or would there be anything that, if we can't make it from Iowa or California or whatever, that we can have some access to it, or you maybe do a highlight
Yeah,
reel to show what happened, or
I'm trying to set up so that we can do live streaming of our awards banquet, which takes place on April 18th.
okay,
That's going to kick off the festival is the award banquets for all the winners of the festival. We're
okay,
trying to set that up so we can live stream it. I haven't quite figured that out yet. Everything will be recorded regardless. So after, even after if we can't do it live after the festival, it will be on our website. So people can watch any of the highlights and things like that. And
mm,
then, like I mentioned, some of the things that will be recorded and distributed. So they'll be like on Amazon, they'll be on YouTube, they'll be on Tubi, they'll be on, multiple platforms, some of the shows that we're putting on. So yeah,
okay.
there'll be lots of options to watch it. I'm just not sure if live yet. We're trying though.
Yeah, yeah, and this is your first year, right? And so, and you plan on making this an annual event, if I remember, our pre-meet, right? You're gonna,
Yep, yep.
okay.
So before we took over as the media festival, the film festival did have, I think this is would be their right now was their 6th year of doing a in-person annual film festival.
Hmm.
But that was it. They only had films and it was I don't want to say it was small, but it was like just one or two events a day over the course of a week, and they would
Oh, wow.
showcase some films at a local theater and that was in the UK, which I
Yeah, I was
think
gonna ask it.
you had did some time in the UK, is that right? You used to live there, or is that somebody else I'm thinking of?
No, that would be someone else. I've
Okay,
been to the
I was
UK a
feeling
couple
like
times, but yeah, no,
oh, okay. I
no,
was felt
no.
like I remembered you saying like your wife was from there or something, but my
Oh,
brain is
that's okay.
never
Yeah.
never with me all fully all the time.
Listen, I will never cast stones when it comes to recall. So yeah, but it migrated over here with you all taking it over.
Yep.
And so I think in our pre-meet you mentioned that this would be a kind of itinerant festival that you would be moving to different locations every year. Did I hear that right?
Yeah,
Or
that's the plan. We want to be able to make sure that when you're in one location, it's harder for, creators to come to you and be celebrated. Of course, we try to make it the bet. We're trying to keep prices low. We do a lot of free stuff for some of the creators coming in. We don't want to be like a burden to their creativity. Um, but also that just because we are trying to keep prices low and things like that doesn't mean that they still have the ability to travel to us. So we're trying to go where we think the creators will be able to be celebrated the most.
okay.
And it looks like we're not locked in yet, but it looks like next year will be in New Mexico.
Ooh,
Yeah, so
ooh,
there's a lot of films being made over there right now, a lot of independent work being done over there. So we thought that might be a good place to go next. And
nice.
and I think we've had a lot of requests for I think it's Maine. And I'm not sure how I feel about that because I don't like cold weather.
Well, I was gonna
And
say that'll have to be in August, right? When it's hot as hell
yeah, we'll
down
have to
here.
our
That's
annual we'll have to be at 1.5 years instead of
Right,
a
right,
yearly. So,
right, right. Oh my gosh. And I said itinerant earlier. I probably should have said transient. Like it's moving
right,
around.
yeah, yeah,
But
we're moving around as
yeah.
needed.
Oh, New Mexico sounds wonderful. And in April it's cool, but I mean, it's not like Maine in April. So yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
it
And
would be a
we're
little
not
better.
doing, it's not only outside events. Like most of our events will be taking place inside, and so we assume that will be other places as well. But, still, if I can avoid being in the cold, I do that at all costs.
I hear
So,
you. I hear you. Yeah, maybe southern New Mexico, because they'll be fine in April. I know if you get up like up into the Las Cruces or up in the north end of the state. I've only been in the north part of New Mexico in February and it was cold as hell, and I'm like,
oh no.
Florida wimp here. Yeah.
Right,
So,
yeah, same.
um, but now going back to what I asked about the live streaming and coverage, in either this event or in the future, will you facilitate a kind of remote presentation if there's a speaker or an author that you can do over a remote platform to an audience at the static location? Is that something you'll consider too?
Yeah, we actually started with that because we had some more celebrity style,
Mhm.
level people may interested in maybe not coming, but being able to do a speak or something there.
Yeah.
And so we played with it, but we actually haven't had good responses to people saying they would be interested in seeing that. Like they would rather
Mm,
listen to somebody that they've never seen before give a speech than listen to a celebrity give a speech via satellites.
hmm
So yeah, we haven't really had good responses to that. And I'm a little bit shocked because I'm trying to think, who did we had? We had like, man, I can't remember. We had one person that I was like, everybody would love that. And people were like, nah, if he's not coming in person, don't do it. So I'm like, but I can't, yeah, I can't. Oh, Steve Martin. We had a Steve Martin was gonna
Okay.
do a Q&A on comedy.
Oh my
And people,
God.
yeah, I know. They were like, we could just do that from why would we come to your event when we could just do that from our house kind of thing. So yeah, so I was like, yeah, well, I guess I don't want to put the money into that. Like,
No, but what a loss because especially somebody like Steve Martin that may be hard to access, and to say that you want them in the flesh vis-a-vis, I would be perfectly fine. And maybe what would help draw is to have an interesting, articulate person to do kind of a setup or a preamble, discuss something, maybe a film historian or somebody that's, can lend some relevance or whatever, set it up in the in the context of that room or in that setting, and then you go live. But yeah, that's interesting
yeah,
that there was
yeah,
a poor response to that because I would have, especially if you already have people who are attending a festival and there may be three options, during that 2 hours or whatever hour that you would see people gravitate to that. But anyway,
Yeah. I
oh,
think, yeah, I think the biggest thing that people were saying is, why would we come to your event to watch TV? Is
mm,
basically like the vibe of what their response to that was.
okay.
And I get that. But sometimes it's like, how often do you get to live stream with somebody like Steve
Who's
Martin?
going to
Like that's not
respond to
going to be,
questions? Yeah,
yeah.
in real
So
time.
that's something that I'm just like, I would do that. I would go to somebody's event to watch TV if it was that.
Yeah, yeah, and if somebody said that to me, my argument, because I love to argue, is you're at the festival. You're at a festival with multiple things going on, and there may be two,
Right.
from the 1 to 2 o'clock hour, there may be two things that you can attend, and if it really drives you nuts not to have a living person in front of you, go to the other thing. But you will not be disappointed by having live Q&A with Steve
Right.
Martin or Martin Short or anybody, in that caliber, and. So yeah, hopefully that gets to grow legs and do its thing because and maybe it's just me, but I would definitely, if I'm at a festival for the day, I would definitely say yes, that's something I want because especially somebody
Right.
like Steve Martin, I grew up with him on Saturday Night Live and things like that. I'd be like, yay, I want to get his
A
insights on things.
master, he's a
Yeah,
master of his craft. So yeah, I
exactly.
feel
And
like a lot of people can learn from him.
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. So, well, hopefully that gestates abstractly and it can come in to play because I think the reality of like and COVID did that for us. We had to do a lot of
right.
remote things, and I spend half my life on YouTube listening to lectures that were filmed and perhaps in that time, but also just more broadly. and I'm perfectly fine with it, even though the recording might be 3 or 4 years old. If it's information that I want and it's a lecture that I'm interested in, then I will sit and listen to that lecture. So I guess just a different mindset. But yeah, all right. So
Right.
enough of me abusing that idea. But yeah, so um, can you speak to bookings that you have as far as before we do that, you have the awards dinner on the first night. What is the adjudication process and what is a jury? How does one assemble a jury to see and judge films or any of the
Yeah,
media
so I actually don't know how they were picked because they're part of the so
with the
I
package?
am yeah, they were part of the package. So I'm actually not the owner of the festival quite yet. I'm the only one in charge at the moment, but we don't officially get to claim ownership until January 15th.
Okay, okay,
Because Wolf Film Festival is still in contract with some other businesses in the UK. So
okay.
we can't officially claim that we're owners yet, but all paperwork's done. So like on paper we're owners, but we're not allowed to actually be the
Doing.
owners until January 15th. So I'm like counting down the days. But so the current judges, they are with the UK, but they're from the United States. They're actually all located, and I can't say who they are.
Right.
As far as film goes, they're all located in California,
Hmm.
surprisingly. So I'm not sure their selection process. I do know that they had to be in a certain amount of movies already, had to have various awards that they won already, had to have like various titles in order to be um and have won certain amount of things in order to be a
Okay.
judge.
Okay.
And same goes with, so we have different judges for our writing, which I was a part of that, and that was kind of that same thing of like, what work have you done already? What kind of background do you have? I mean, that was my own choice in selecting the judges. And I really wanted a diverse group, so we weren't just having, five of the same people judging. Needed a real diverse group. And it's kind of interesting how when I pick the diversity that I was going for, how I kind of get the same notes back a lot of times. So that makes me know that I that the book was good or the poem was good or whatever. If everybody's like actually getting, 80% of the same message that you delivered, then
Okay.
that tells me like, oh yeah, you did a really good job on delivering your message because all these diversities are picking up on what you're saying. Same with photography. It's different. There's one of the film judges is also one of our photography judges, but other than that, it's a whole new set of photography judges.
Mhm.
Um, and so the film also does our social media content judging, and podcast is our authors as well, or I'm sorry, our writing judges. Our judges do the podcasts as well. So,
Mhm.
um,
No, that's interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Sorry, I hope I'm sorry if you didn't.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, go
okay. I
ahead.
didn't want to step on your finishing your thought there. Judging podcasts. So you just listen to the podcast. So they review a podcast and
Yep.
okay, that's interesting. And I'm not. I'll never claim to be good at this, but I'm wondering I'm trying to imagine the criteria. Obviously, you can sense like bad when you see bad, or let's say bad, but
Right.
like not. But yeah, that's interesting how that would go. But I think
It's kind
when
of
you're in
the
the presence of something that's
Yeah, I think like one of the there's like two major things that come to mind, and I think a lot of people will understand it when I say it, but your quality. There's
yeah,
so many people out there, like everybody has a podcast now.
right,
But
right,
is your audio quality good that people want to listen to you? Because it's easier to watch a visually bad film that has good audio quality, but than it is to watch a beautiful film that has poor audio quality.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
same with your podcast. People
yeah,
don't want to listen to gargly sounds and
right,
whispers in the background. Too much noise, not enough noise. They want to listen to crisp clearness. So that is like one of the main things.
okay,
And then also, are you on your high horse the whole time? Yeah, you're
mm,
probably not. You're probably not a good podcast because no matter what your subject is, um, you have to be kind of fluid with what you're talking about, willing
okay,
to. I mean, I can come in here and say, I'm here, I have a podcast, and I'm going to talk about diseases. But if I come in and talk about and say, there's so many science on these diseases already, but I'm saying this is the only way that this can be, and this is the only blah blah blah, then you're going to be like, no, because actually my grandma, when she had that, it didn't work out that way, you know. So
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to be kind of like, more like, the most
Flexible.
common thing that happens with, and kind of approach it that way. So those
Okay.
are two major things. Are you on your high horse, and do you have good quality?
Yeah.
And if you don't think you're the king of it all, you're probably going to move forward to the next judge.
Okay.
And if you have good quality, you're going
Hmm.
to probably move forward to the next judge. So we have like one judge who just like filters out the really bad, and then the other
Hmm.
judges like judge on the content itself.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting now that you've said that, I'm getting it because I can now I'm recalling over the last 3 or 4 years that I've gone on to podcasts for a guest that I just absolutely adore, but the host is such a jackass. I'm like, beep, I'll watch another one somewhere else. Yeah.
yep, yep.
Yeah. So okay. Okay. Good. Good to know. Good to know. Um, let's see. Can you speak? Okay, this is probably something that you won't be able to talk to until after January, but like okay, broadly, without naming names, do you have a good constituency of medium length and the short films? I know in your website you have a criteria 5 to 40, 40 and over, and so are you building a good constituency of entrants right now?
The most that we get is what's considered a short, so 10
Hmm.
films, and that's overall categories. The most thing that we get is short films. So something that's up like 8 to probably 8 to 20 minutes is what we mostly get, but to be a short, you just have to be under 40 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd say about 8 to 20 minutes is the most common we get, and we get some really awesome things. I posted on Facebook a couple weeks ago that we do not have female directors.
Ooh,
So that is one of our major categories that we award at the awards banquet for the annual. I mean, we award monthly. Every month we give awards. But if you win the monthly, you move on to the annual award.
okay.
And for the annual award, there's only one female director up, and that's me. And
Mm,
uh, so as a festival owner and can I award myself? I don't know what my score is because I submitted to the festival before we were taking it over. So I still
yeah.
actually don't know my score.
Okay.
So maybe if I had competitors, maybe I would win, but I know what my film is and I can't imagine that I'm worthy of this award.
Right, right.
So we need more female directors. Same with female of feature. Sorry, that's with feature lengths, a full length
Yeah.
film. Because we have a couple. We have I think only three female short for directors for short films. Still not. We try to get five. Our goal is to have at least five
Hmm.
to compete against each other. And right now we have three short film female directors and only one feature length, and that one's me. So am I
Yeah.
going to win by default? I don't want to do that. And same with feature length female lead actresses. Not a lot of roles are coming in for female leads, and we don't really realize how often are we watching a show that there's not a female lead or who's behind the camera.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's the Oh, and anything with that like focusing on diversity. We don't have very many films coming in that are focused on it's mostly white people in everything.
Hmm.
And a couple of them are, if it's not white people, it's black people only. So we don't
Hmm.
have anything that's like cross combining.
Yeah.
Or if there is, it's one like an extra who happens to not match the race of everybody else, but not
Yeah.
really, nothing major. So
Yeah.
I mean, we have specific categories for minorities of all. We have, Latino, Hispanic categories. We have Native categories. We have
Okay.
Pacific Islander and we're not getting anything in those. So my personal goal would be to like focus on getting these multi-diversity categories. I would love to see a film that is just combining a lot of things. We did have a winner, I think it was last month, who kind of did that better than anybody. It is two white male leads, but they do have a lot of Native American spirituality mixed in there, which included having actual Native Americans in the film.
Hmm.
And there was it was about Taoism, so there's a lot of, blending cultures together.
Right. Right.
So that one kind of hit, but it was
Mhm.
still 90% white people being leads and things like
Yeah.
that. So but yeah, in general, those we're desperate to get more of those, but I love getting the shorts that we get. You know how
Yeah.
much fun it is to watch like 6 movies in an hour?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No,
kind of a
I
cool
agree.
thing.
Oh no, no, I totally agree. I totally agree. I've sort of walked away from cinema for a while, and again, I focus more on just really boring, dry lectures, and
Mm.
nothing inspiring in terms of creativity and art, unless they're talking about something artistic. But I do. My wife and I binged for about 12 years, watched 1,500 films, and just and there were shorts. And years ago, there was an art house theater in my town, and I'd go and just catch all the crazy stuff that they were turning out. But yeah, I do have a deep appreciation for any mode of creativity through a lens like that. In fact, I've interviewed and off once we're done recording, I'll email some names over to you. I had Carrie Ann Miller, who's a female director. She's trying to get her first film out the door, and she's got a rap sheet on IMDb, and
Send
awesome
her my
person.
way. I need
I
that.
will. I will. Maybe I'll reach out to her. She and I spoke maybe a year. The interview was 2 and change years ago. Eric Black, Heart of Sky, Heart of Earth. He's a filmmaker with a female film collaborating partner, co-equal collaborating partner. Heart of Sky, Heart of Earth was an incredible movie. It's a documentary, and he also did a film on neuroscience that was really neat. That's what
Oh, cool.
originally drew me to him. Yeah. So I have a couple of people. And Lee McCloskey. He's multi media. He was in a Dario Argento film, so I was like, he was on Dallas for a while, but he does
Cool.
art like not quite Hieronymus Bosch, but just this really wild, beautiful art. So anyway, I've had a few people, and I'll see if we can. And Cherokee Films, I get their emails a lot. They're Native American film producers and
Yeah,
production
I've
companies.
actually reached
Have
out
you?
to them
Okay.
specifically, and I
Okay.
haven't gotten any submissions
Oh,
from them,
okay.
but I have reached out to them specifically, being like, please let us honor some of your work, and I haven't
Yeah.
gotten.
Well, I'll agitate them too. I'll be like, hey, come on,
Yes, please.
check
And
out
and
Wolf
I
Media
we
Festival.
do fee waivers for all these groups that are not that our fees are high either way. We're
Right.
between like $1 and $10 depending on what you're submitting.
Okay.
But for all these other ones that we're like desperate to get films for, you
Waive
don't
it.
have to pay anything. So
Oh,
please,
oh
like, come
yeah.
to us.
I'll dig up whatever I can and get some names or yeah, whatever I can. You and I've talked about this before. If there's any way I can
Right.
avail myself in the limited resources I have, but they might be gems. So yeah, we'll definitely do that. Let's see. Let me ask you, is there anything else you want to cover that you want the audience to know? And then maybe we'll begin our transition over into to another part of your life.
I think I've covered it all, but I'll just reiterate that if you're coming, it's gonna be a fun time. Like
Yeah.
that's my goal is like let's celebrate all these things and let it bring joy into your life. Let's,
Mm,
have
yeah.
fun with it.
I plan on being there. And there's a question. If content creators show up, do we need to sign a waiver? Do we need to do anything with you? Because I may just take some video clips, some, just scenes from
You're
the.
allowed to do pretty much whatever you want as long as whoever's in your video is also agreeing to it.
Okay.
We will
Okay.
be doing live podcasting there as well. So if you want to set, I can't remember if we talked about you potentially setting up to live podcast, but we have about 5 other podcasters coming in that if
Okay.
anybody wants to potentially be on their show or watch them do a live recording, we
Okay.
can, you
That'll
could be
be
a part of
available
that.
to her.
So
Okay. Yeah. When we started this conversation, my little thought bubble started popping up that either this channel or I have another channel. I have five YouTube channels. I don't have hyperactive issues, but the other one is horticulture and botany, but it also covers Florida-centric things like historical homes, highwayman artists, just
cool.
anything that relates to Florida. And this relates to Florida and media. Even though it's a horticulture and botany channel, I can take liberty. So I may go with this channel or I may go to that channel. I'm not sure. So anyway, but yeah, I would love to catch some highlights and get them out there, and
Cool.
that would be good fodder for the next year. People will see that.
Yeah, definitely.
And going back to having diversity, I'm intuiting that in the future, as this develops and builds, it's now in your hands and it's your baby. And I think as it matures, you're going to get the salience and the presence. Will the streams will open up for you, and people will know. And that's when I think you're going to get more of that diversity that would be wonderful to have an inclusive
Yeah,
film
I'm excited
festival.
about it.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
excited.
No, and to summarize, Jacquelynn, on my end, I'm really excited for it, and I don't really get excited about. I get excited about going to botanical gardens and things like that because,
I
like I
know, and
said,
I love that. That's so adorable. I love it.
I just planned a big trip on the 20th and 21st of December, and it's so hysterical because I just spent like 4 hours looking at Homestead, like any nurseries that I haven't seen before. Not 4 hours, probably about 2.5. Just looking at all these different nurseries in Homestead that I can go hit and just check out and make film, make videos. And
Yeah, is
I
that going to be in Florida? Are you going to ones in
yeah,
Florida?
yeah, just gonna
Oh,
go overnight into Homestead and Redlands District, and I
oh,
reached
okay.
out to something called the Tropical Research Education Center, and they do uh, tropical agricultural research for Florida and Hawaii and places like that where we can grow things in Puerto Rico that are tropical. So they do vanilla orchid and other things to see
Wow.
what they can do for the next economically viable crop for Florida, and then the USDA Chapman Field is the same thing, except it's Trek is IFAS, which is the University of Florida, and then USDA Chapman Field is federal, and they do really amazing. They're doing like dwarf coconut species that will bring higher yield coconut milk and blah, 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 So
Wow.
so yeah, I go completely berserk when I go. It's like my Hodge. I go down there, I go to Fairchild, and I love Miami. I just absolutely love. So forgive my tangent, but yeah, that's in the
No, no,
works.
I love that too. I don't think I'm like educationally as developed as you are with that stuff, but I could live there. I feel my husband tells me I'm a fairy because
Ah,
if I could live in a flower, I would.
yeah.
I love it. It's
Oh
so
yeah,
peaceful. It's so
it is.
beautiful. Like you can't not feel like peace and happiness when you're surrounded by all that beauty. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, plants are my absolute friends. I just absolutely love, and my yard reflects that. I have thousands of things out there, and so yeah, and this is perhaps a beginning of a segue into psychology, into therapy and recovery, because I could give a history, and I know, given that history, that this is very therapeutic for me to deal with plants and to create and curate and love, and like I was saying to you before we hit record, I'm going to go up to Florida Tech and just drop off tons of plants, and there's already tons of plants. So it's my outlet, it's like cheaper than
Right.
therapy, as they say. So anyway, enough of me, enough of that. But all right, so the one last question I have for you is, I think there was a submission deadline of late March 25th, somewhere around there, for any of the products that that will be adjudicated. Is that correct,
Y-
or?
Yeah, actually, it's actually February 20th. If you want to
Oh,
get
thank you,
in
thank you.
on the annual, I mean, I might have even told you wrong, but if you want to try to get into the annual award, you have until February
Okay,
20th
okay.
to give us some time for all the judging. So we do let the top 5 people come into the awards banquet for free, and
Hmm.
there are tickets for sale if you're not a creator. But yeah, top 5 in your category. So we have like 80 awesome people coming.
Mm,
Maybe
mm.
there's actually probably more than that, but there's like 80 to 100 awesome people who are up for this annual award, which includes some cool things.
Okay,
And yep, but get your submissions in by February 20th. We do monthly awards. So if you get it in now, you could still win for the month.
okay.
Every month starts on the 20th and ends on the 19th. So and then we announce on the first of every month. But yeah, so you can win, and there are mostly bragging rights with your monthly one, but it does come, like, if you're a filmmaker, we are IMDb accredited, so you get
Nice.
the credit for people to see. So
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. What an opportunity for people too. And the entrance the submission cost is so reasonable, and that's awesome that you guys are doing that to make it accessible. So and I'm sure this is on the minds of perhaps some people in the audience, is this is a 3-day event. I'm sorry, I'm trying to
yeah, it's
remember. Okay.
so the 18th is the awards banquet is the only thing taking place that day.
Okay.
And well, after the awards banquet, there's also, I'm calling it the prom, but there's an after party to kind
Okay.
of mingle and everybody to
Okay.
get to know each other. But that's on the 18th. The 19th and the 20th is just chaos of pure fun. there's at a minimum of 6 events going on at any given time. So whether it's a film screening, a live performance, a reading, there's going to be something every hour. There will be a minimum of 6 things happening.
Okay.
And then we will have the vendor floor room as well. So we're trying to invite local crafters and things like that who have another type of art that they like to share and, with the world. And we want to promote them too. We don't have a way to award these people yet, but we feel like definitely we can help showcase your work and help you get yourself out there that way. So we're having the vendor showroom as well.
Okay. And for attendance, is there an attendance fee? Is there a 3-day ticket or a ticket for the there's an admission fee for the awards dinner, I would imagine, because you at least said that would
Yes,
be waived for.
yep. The award. So if you're invited as a potential winner, you're free. Other than that, the tickets are pretty pricey. I think they're $150. Well, right now on the website, I think they're 200 and something dollars, but that includes your weekend passes and stuff as well. After we're recording before Thanksgiving right now. As part of Black Friday, we're dropping our prices and those will be dropped for the rest of the year. So
Mhm.
although Black Friday sale will be at cost to us, so that'll be
Okay.
the lowest, but after that it'll just bump up to a little bit more than at cost to us.
Okay.
And then to get into the festival on the weekend, you do have to have tickets. I think they're $10 per day, except if kids are free and that's kids 17 and under. So if
Hmm.
you're, almost an adult, you can still get in free. Because we don't want to discourage kids and teens from coming, and
Yeah.
we don't want to discourage families from not coming. But we do, it does cost. It's costing us about $180,000 to put this on.
Hmm.
So we're trying to make up some of that,
Yeah.
but with cost. But so we're trying to keep low cost, but is not free at this time.
Yeah, no, 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 no. And I wouldn't expect it to be given what you're going to be doing and what will be available. So thank you for sharing all of that. And like I said, I'm very, like I said, I'm emotionally, I'm like, yay, I'm ready to go. But I'm also invested in the sense that this is community. For this year, it's regional, and I like
Mm.
that. And it's very creative. It's something for the community to consume. And so, yeah, I just feel really good about what you guys are doing. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate that you're doing it. So I'll offer that to you. Now, if you're good, what we can do is do a little segue into another part of your life, and that is that you are a therapist, you're a psychologist, and I want to let the audience know that we're going to be talking about some things, and I've had other guests on recently, and there's going to be some sensitive matters being discussed, so I'll just offer that caveat right now. That there will be some language and some ideas talked about that can, as the young ones say, there's a trigger warning here that there could be some things that could be upsetting or sensitive. So I'll let that be our caveat there. But yeah, so you're a psychologist.
Mhm.
I would like to I like to talk about it more broadly. And so when you were in your formative years, were you always very like straight line as far as like what you want to do? Once you got your degree and once you became a practitioner, were there zigzags in the trajectory? So can you share
Yeah,
that as
so
your provenance story?
Yeah, so actually, as a child, I wanted to be a superhero, which led into being, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and there's just not very many veterinarian schools. Plus, nobody in my family, I'm the first female to graduate high school, the first person to go to college.
Hmm.
So, just these big dreams that I had already was like kind of not in my family's history or
Right,
means.
right.
So then I thought maybe just going to become a pediatrician might be like a more easier thing to get into. We need more of those. There's more schools for that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So I started in medical school originally, and all the jobs that I was getting for while going to school were related to like nursing homes and home care, which is great. but I do not have the heart for that. And I don't mean like I'm mean, but
Mm.
if somebody passes away on me, I'm shattered. So
Yeah, yeah.
so I couldn't, I kind of realized maybe 2 years into it, kind of realized that I don't think I'll ever be able to not be emotionally affected by the cycle of life. Um, but so I was, kind of thinking, what can I do? Do I even continue school at all? Like, that's not, most of the women in my family are hairdressers. Is that the
Mm.
route I need to take?
Right.
What do I do? And I decided to put some work into myself and thought, while I'm going to continue going to school, and I decided I'll do business. You could do business is good for any job. You can use it. And I thought, what am I going to do as my electives for my business degree? And I was like, well, some self work. I'm going to focus on psychology
Mm.
and switched over from medical to business to psychology, just like that. And I didn't know all the areas of psychology even. In my head, there's a counselor that you sit on their couch and you talk to them, and maybe they figure something out and maybe they don't. That's kind of what I thought it was. And going through school, it's so the brain is just so fascinating. And I couldn't just stop at being a therapist. Although, I was like, this is really cool that I can use this to help people. But my brain was like, tell me more about myself, tell me more about how the human functions and learning all these cool things. So I just kept going. And then I ended up, once I finished my I think it was when I finished my master's, but still working towards my doctorates, I decided to work with kids with special needs and working with specifically autism. That kind of really has taken a boom lately. And
Mhm.
so many more services provided, so much more studies on how to help people who have autism. I have a son who is autistic, and I didn't even know. I just thought he was quirky,
Yeah.
So he's very high functioning, but he's
Okay.
also like I say it's his superpower because it's like you tell him to do something once and you show him how to do it the right way, and that's all he can do now. He doesn't, so if he's sick, he can't miss school because he's been trained that you wake up at this time and you go to school, so trying to tell him like, no, 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 you're sick, you have to stay home. That's like the battle we have, is where most parents are like, you're not sick, go to school. Like
Right, right.
mine's the opposite because that's what he's been like trained to do. These things, chores, never have to ask him to do a chore because that one day I told him, this is when you do this chore and this is how you do it. And now his brain is like, this is the thing you do. So
Wow.
it's a
Wow.
superpower for him. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
everybody needs one of these kids.
I
Um,
know. Yeah.
but I didn't even know. I just thought he was unique in his own way. And then working with autistic kids, I was somebody else pointed out like, oh, did you want to work with autistic kids because of your autistic child? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like it still had, because the ones I was working with were so much more low functioning that I didn't really like connect that could be
Okay.
his. So we started getting him tested. And another thing, when he was young, he was deaf. And it sounds so weird that he's not deaf anymore, but his sinuses didn't grow properly, which
Okay.
prevented him from hearing and speaking for years and years. So I thought part of his quirkiness was also his delay in the beginning of his life. He was
Okay.
about 4 years old before he could talk and hear,
Okay.
and that can really, cause delays.
Oh yeah.
So I thought that was part of his delays,
Mm-hmm.
or part of his quirkiness. He never
Mm.
really seemed delayed because he's very smart, but
Oh yeah.
so we took him in, got him tested. At the time, Asperger's was still a diagnosis in the United States, and that's what he was diagnosed with. A year later, they said we don't do that. It's just autism for everybody.
Oh
Yeah. So
wow. I didn't know that.
yeah, so I think
Okay.
that was 2012. They took that out of the United States diagnosis and just clumped
Oh.
it in with autism.
So it's
So,
just the spectrum is continuous. There's no sort of
yep,
delineation. Okay, good to
yep.
know because I have a friend, and when you were saying this about the chores and things, I have a friend who's on the spectrum, and I always said Asperger's, uh, but he taught me a lot about botany and horticulture because he's about 12, 14 years older than me. Encyclopedic recall. You could any plant, you could go out in the everything, just boop, 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 and just give you
Yeah.
a whole string of it.
Superpower.
yeah, string
Yeah.
of information, and I'm about 30%, 40% of that, but 5, 6 years straight hanging out with the guy, I wicked it all up, and now so I owe him between that and the internet. It's like,
Right? That
but
he, yeah, I really think Asperger, I wish they would bring Asperger's back because it is such a unique form. I get that it's a type of autism, but it is
mhm,
a type of autism.
right.
And it's just pure superpower from my point of view. Like I've never
Hmm.
met somebody who with Asperger's who isn't the most brilliant at their thing,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. No. And what was funny about my friend, and I say funny, and please grant me charity, audience, because I have neuro stuff too, but I would tell him jokes and they don't get incongruity resolution or the point of a joke, you know. And so
Right.
I would deliver the punchline and he would analyze it and he would say, well, you know what you did there, you know, so he would just sort of analyze it. And I'm like, dude, that's the whole point. And they're
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
go,
This was supposed to be fun.
yeah, yeah. And he does have a sense of humor. So it's not like he's just Mr. Spock. But, there were times when I'd tell
Right.
him a joke and he'd say, you know what you did there, don't you? You know, and I'm like, don't give me the formula. It's supposed to be
Yeah, like
stupid.
I know what I did. I did that on
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I used to have fun
Yep.
with him that way. But anyway, so yeah, so I'm glad to know that. So you work towards working with children with autism
Yep.
and
My in my heart, my passion was always trauma. Like I
mhm,
wanted to work with kids who had trauma. I myself had a lot of trauma from childhood and I just felt like I don't know, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm patting myself on the back, but I feel like with if you like laid out what I've been through as a kid, that I shouldn't be where I am in life.
right, right.
And And I felt like if I could do this and figure things out, and of course it wasn't on my own. I had, I had supports along the way from time to time and therapy myself and being able to get educated and things like that. I do have privileges, but I thought if I can help kids who've gone through things that I've gone through and they can get to where I'm at, even on not even trying to get to my best day, but on my worst day, like that's such an improvement of where we came from. And and that was my passion. And I accidentally got into working with trafficked children. And
Mm,
it's been my goal. So that is the trigger warning and potentially any stories that I may share. I don't know where this conversation's going, but
yeah,
there's some pretty dark stuff. So extra trigger warning on that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just I started working with trauma and focusing my education on trauma, but I started working for a company um that was their goal was to help kids. And I didn't know when I started working there, I thought it was just kids with trauma. And it
Mhm.
happened to be a very specific trauma that I could relate to. And it was kind of an amazing match. And now I have my own company. The other company, I'll give them a shout out. It's Chrysalis Health I think they have lots of places, but I was in Orlando is where
Okay.
I was working out, even though I live in Melbourne.
Hmm.
It was, a trek every day.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah. And so
Bless your
yeah,
heart.
so yeah, it was rough and there wasn't very many clients over that can come this way, but
Right.
um in Florida and a lot of states there's actually laws that if you're being trafficked, you can get a criminal record for it, and that was a lot of the clients that we were getting were kids who are going through trauma and now being punished for their trauma. And so that's why I love Chrysalis because their goal was to remove that. Like let's not make this be a thing anymore. And so they're putting a lot of work and effort into fighting that. Me myself fighting some of that. How many times I've had to go to court and go to Congress and things like that too. Like it just does not make sense to me
Right.
that they're being punished. And some of these kids are little. It's not like they're, a near 18-year-old with a punk attitude. It's
Yeah.
like which sometimes it is that, but
Yeah.
I'm also
Yeah.
like, do you know why they have that punk attitude? Do you do you
Yeah.
understand that?
Yeah. There's a
And
genealogy there.
right, yeah, I'm like, do you know what they've been through for the last 17 years? You most likely wouldn't be alive if you did what they, had gone through what they had gone through. So
Right. Right.
so yeah, it's a lot of battling that, and then just kind of I've been through a couple companies in Florida trying to make my life better for my family as well, and traveling 4 hours a day between to and from work kind of wasn't really a good option when I had a
Right.
newborn.
Yeah.
And so eventually I had to leave them, but I love them so much. I think if there's other chrysalises too, but if you're in the Orlando area and you have trauma of any kind, I say go seek them out. They're amazing. They have amazing people there. Actually, their training program for their company, while you do have to have a minimum of a master's to work there, they also put you through a training. And I was like, why'd I even go to college? This training was better than anything I ever went to school for. So like they are an amazing company. But then working through a couple other companies here, it was a lot of trauma, but less traffic, but still a lot of sex abuse that I worked with some other companies. But I wanted to focus again on the trafficking. So we started my own company about a year and a half ago, and unfortunately it's doing well.
Mm,
Unfortunately.
mm, mm.
Um, yeah, so trafficking's so huge in the whole United States, and people don't realize how huge it really is.
Yeah,
Florida, extra huge. Where Florida's the third most trafficked place in the world at the moment. A lot of these coastal states are going to be higher in trafficking, but just because you live in the middle of the country doesn't mean that there's not trafficking there as well, because there's a lot. It's everywhere and you just don't realize it. So it's intense and scary and sad.
absolutely. And one question that comes to mind is those who come to you, I could intuit that they are not resource, blessed or fortunate. And so, who are the benefactors that allow the therapy to take place? So, in other words, you have somebody who's living homeless or on the street, and
Right.
they come to you. Is this a pipeline through the court system, or children and families, or how do you receive them, and how are they sponsored, or how does that work that they can
Yeah.
get into the system with you or other chrysalises or other agencies?
So a lot of the time it does come through us through the courts.
Hmm.
Chrysalis, that was almost everybody coming
Okay.
through the court system.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think you could still reach out to them if you're not being punished. You could still reach out and get help, but that was most of them. Still now get a lot of court referrals,
Hmm.
which makes me so mad. It makes me so mad, but I'm glad I can help. Um, and and then mostly lately it's been more word of mouth for me. But for them to come to me means we have to be in a place that they've already been saved and rescued. And so I haven't been able to focus on actually finding and saving people in a while. That it was for a part of it, a part of my life was tracking traffickers and finding children who are being, well, it wasn't always children, but most of the time children who are being trafficked. That was a part of it. That was my brain. As much as there's a huge reward for that, it's very PTSD inducing, and it's
Yeah.
hard to, be a mom at the same time as that.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah.
for I'd say about the last 3 or so years, I have not done any work on preventing trafficking, or not preventing, but stopping traffickers like I was before. I would love if I could emotionally get back to where I could do that, because that is a superhero. That was when I was my superhero and got to wear my cape. But right now my cape needs to be put away while I focus on being a mom. But yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of them come to me through word of mouth right now. Courts, DCF,
Hmm.
that's Department of Children and Family in a couple states. That's kind of like CPS in other states, or Health and
Okay.
Welfare in other states might call it something like that. So I get a lot of referrals that way. And it's not a high paying job. Everybody, you introduced me as doctor, people think I must be loaded, or I
Right.
have this
Right. Yeah.
title.
Yeah.
Most of the time, my hourly, it comes down to I probably make about $10 an hour,
Uh-huh.
because I work a lot with, and a lot of them are free. It
Uh,
depends on what grants we're getting. If they happen to have Medicaid or something, I get paid about $70 an hour for that client. Which is a decent chunk of money, but then I'm going to have the next four clients probably I make nothing on. So,
right. You got to
um,
divide it out. Yeah.
yeah, so once you divide it out, it makes my husband a little bit mad, because I mean, I can't say mad because he gets it and he wants to be a part of it, but if I take people who have insurance, I get paid like $300 an hour.
Hmm.
Well, 99.9% of my clients do not have insurance. So he sometimes is like really like, let's get these insurance people coming in and let's figure out, how can we get you more clients who have insurance? And well, the clients who have insurance are not the clients who need me, they're not the ones who need the support. So yeah, I rely a lot on grants and social funding to keep myself afloat. And also, if I didn't have my husband, I don't think I would be able to have my own company right now. I, not that working for somebody else is bad, but it's just not the focus that I want,
Yeah.
But yeah, my husband is our breadwinner for sure. Otherwise,
Okay.
I think last year I made like $56,000 and that
Yeah.
was working 60 to 80 hours a week. So it's
Yeah.
not a high paying job, but it's
No.
a rewarding job for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. There's different forms of capital, I suppose, and I hate to commodify everything, but yeah, the the compensation that you receive for what you do goes beyond the coldness of dollars and cents and things
Right.
like that. So, and I applaud that because, if we could inject some of that into into the broader culture and people
I
didn't just
just
do everything for a buck, and
I
it's
know. And trust me, I get sometimes, I daydream about, oh, if I could just win the lottery and I start thinking of all the good things I would do, but my brain starts thinking about the house I would buy and the car. So I do dream of those big bucks days. And I get it when my husband's like, let's get more insurance. Like, I understand it,
yeah,
but it's very rarely that people are actually in a position like mine where I can help others and it not have to be the focus to my family's survival.
yeah,
So I'm kind of taking advantage of that while I can. Again, if I didn't have my husband, I don't know what I would do because I have four children. I have two of them are in college right now. I have a 16-year-old in college and I have an 18-year-old college. They actually have scholarships, so I can't
mm,
complain too much. But
right,
but we got blessed that they got
yeah.
scholarships. If I was single momming it, I don't know how we would
Oh
do
yeah.
college, how we would do four kids. Like
You'd
I
probably
just
be
don't know.
forced into the insurance side of things less
Right,
and, kind of not selling out necessarily, but I can tell, that your soul would not be nourished in that sense,
right,
that you're
yeah, yeah,
doing what you feel like you're called to do as the superhero, the archetype of that functional superhero, not a rescuer or savior, but just
yeah,
somebody who gets the job done,
yeah, yeah.
gets results and so forth. Let me ask you a question going back a little bit. When we talk about these unfortunate persons getting arrested or charged with things, are these archaic holdover laws? Are they, 19th century puritanical laws, or are they things we've done recently as a state or a nation to get tough on crime? Or, where is this coming from that these children and young persons are being charged with? And I understand the law, is doesn't, it doesn't make exceptions for things. I can kind of steelman that side of it, but what is going on that they are being run through the courts like that? You know.
Yeah, it's all sorts of things. Like they really I hate this conversation already. They
Well,
really no,
you're
we'll talk about it though, but it
okay. I
is
was going to
something
say
that
choose.
makes me so mad, but they kind of look for something to charge them with no matter what.
Okay.
So for example, one that hurts my soul, this was almost 5 years ago, I would say. I had a client who was my client, a male who was kidnapped at the age of I think he was 12, 11 or 12,
Hmm.
and then he was found. He had been being sold sexually to other people for a long time, and when he was not being sexually abused or taken advantage of, he was living in a dog crate.
Mm.
After a little over 2 years, they found him. The police officer tried to pull him out of the dog crate, and in that moment, that child who's gone through nothing but hell at that point kicked at the officer to get away. Unfortunately, a lot of the times the people abusing him were people in power, such as police officers and other people that you're supposed to look up to. So in his brain, he doesn't think of it as a rescue. He thinks of it as potential danger. That officer didn't get hurt. That officer didn't lose any time from work or anything, but they charged him with assault on an officer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put it on paper, he kicked an officer. Yeah, that's assault on an officer, but they
Mm-hmm.
didn't take into the account of everything that was going on. That kid doesn't even know that that was an officer trying to pull him out of this dog kennel. This kid was, oh, so it had been a little over. So he was 15 when he became my client. And he was about the size of an 8-year-old because of
Mm-hmm.
all the malnutrition and everything that he had gone through over the years. I had seen pictures of what he had been living in,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a 60-pound bull terrier who has a bigger cage. We cradle her at night or kennel her at night. Her cage is bigger than what he was living in. In my brain, that kid should have done more than just kick the officer when he thinks he's fighting for his life. Um, but that is somebody who came to me with an assault on an officer charge, which is pretty detrimental charge to have. Some of them come in with more minor things, like maybe they had stolen something and
Mm-hmm.
that's what they got hit. That's what got them out of the situation though, is
Right, right.
they get caught stealing food or it's usually minor things. Not that we have CDs anymore, but it would be like something like equivalent to a CD that they got
Yeah.
caught stealing. And then that's what they get a charge for, but that's actually the thing that saves them in some of the cases. So, mixed feeling on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then a big one in Florida is it's illegal to be homeless. So
Mm-hmm.
that's, a huge part of the teen population who is being trafficked are homeless teens.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that you can get a criminal record for in Florida. So that is one of the charges we see a lot
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
homeless children with charges for not having a home to go home to. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the young man in the cage, did the state's attorney recognize these kind of mitigating circumstances, these kind of extraordinary circumstances that, this is not a typically imprinted, introjected child, that had a leave it to beaver kind of childhood. If they kicked an off, if somebody like me who had a reasonably much better upbringing than that, if I kicked an officer, and I can discern what's going on. But were there any considerations after the fact? Because yeah, you get charged with something, but then the state's attorney has some discretion. Was there? And if we can't go into it, that's fine. But I would just wonder if there was some, you know, consideration in that regard.
yeah, not really. He did a couple weeks of um it's not called juvenile detention, but Florida
Hmm.
has its own term for juvenile detention. So he did a couple weeks of that, and then he was on probation for 2 years. Part of his probationary requirements is how he came to me was he had to seek counseling. And then if he completed counseling, that would remove some charges, that would drop his charges to something else. So he basically had to run the gauntlet in order to one get better, which was that part of it's good. All of a sudden he's getting offered services and help and getting reunited with his family and things like that. So that part was good, but it was like one mistake and forever you are tainted. And we finished the court system while he was still my client. I held on to him, I think for about 6 months after that. But last I heard, he was not living at home. He was put in foster care. Um, I don't know I don't know what was going on at home, but his family was low, they were lower income family. And so I imagine that once the services stop getting paid for by grants or by the state, that they can't upkeep it themselves. And so I think that was part of putting him in foster care meant he can get back into services again. And I try to keep them if I can fit them in my schedule. If they can't pay, I'll keep them as long as possible. But there is a point where I have to kind of judge, do you still need me? Do you need to branch out on your own? Are you preventing me from helping somebody else because I'm giving you too much attention that you don't really need right now? And unfortunately, that was when I was with a different company. So they just said, cut him off. financially I did, but I did see him for about 6 months after the company didn't know I was still seeing him. But yeah, so I think the records he got when we were together, those were removed or sealed or whatever the term is now. But like I said, he's kind of, the last I knew, he was back in the system. And hopefully he's doing good. He would be, I think he'd be 19 now,
Mhm.
19 or 20 at this point. So I hope he's doing well. He was,
Could,
to me, he was a good kid. He was just a kid, and he was,
yeah. Could you sense that there was hope for that person, and I not just him specifically, but in those circumstances, um, and using that case as for instance, do you think that there's a chance for that person to find some place of normalcy and functionality as an adult?
for him himself, I really do. I hope that foster care was actually good. I think his family needed a lot of help too. While I don't think they were the cause of him getting kidnapped and, the life that he ended up having to live for a couple years, I don't think they were that cause. They were also struggling. The father had a bunch of criminal records, so it wasn't like, and petty stuff, minor things,
Yeah.
nothing, he wasn't like a violent criminal or anything. But
Hmm.
when they're struggling so much too,
Yeah.
it kind of is a life cycle for everybody. So I'm hoping that foster care was actually the catalyst he needed to get out of that cycle. I think they were good people. They were just in not a good situation themselves. So yeah, I do have hope for him. But I also have hope for almost everybody. So I do think he had it in him with the right guidance that he can get his life on track, because he was a very sweet, in his core. You could tell he was such a sweet boy who just wanted to be a boy. He just wanted to be a boy. And
Right.
so I think, yeah, I really have hopes for him. And I don't even have a way to contact him anymore, but I would love, if he happens to see me right now,
Yeah.
contact me.
Yeah. Oh no, that would be nice. And I'm also wondering, and I'm totally ignorant of what's going on, but the person that put him in the dog cage, did the constabularies, seek some kind of charges against the person that put that young man in the cage?
Yes.
Good, good.
Yes. So
Okay, good.
fortunately, that is one of the more happy endings as far as that side goes. I've had
Okay.
lots of um cases where that's not the situation, and or they get, minor slaps, and that's only been in Florida that I've seen that. So that's another reason that but I can't say I haven't. I know a lot of these coastal states have these major problems to this level. So I don't know what their laws are, and I don't know why the laws are the way they are. But an example that I have of the opposite is the 3 and 4 year old that I had around the same time as this other child. They were set on fire and hung by their necks out a window by people who were raping them
Hmm.
for money, and their mom was actually the one selling them. And while I don't think she thought they would get set on fire, she knew what she was selling them into. And
Mm-hmm.
she got 6 months probation. And that was her punishment for these kids' lives being forever. I mean, they were not burned to death, but they are scarred horrendously. Like, it's not something that they're going to overcome. The
Yeah.
the 3 year old, the I don't know how the 3 year old survived, because the rope had gone through their esophagus even.
Uh-huh.
Like, that scar is something you are going to see forever. It
Yeah.
it was, I don't know how they didn't get decapitated. It was so deep.
Wow. Wow.
Um and I'm starting to feel sick from talking about this one. But yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
mom got 6 months probation. They kind of said, well, mom's a victim too. And I think you can be a victim without being an a-hole. Like, you don't have to do bad things because you're a victim.
well,
I
no, go ahead,
I
finish. I'm sorry.
that particular I do understand that sometimes you are in a position where it's like me or them, me or them. That was not this mom's case. The mom's case was, she was addicted to drugs, and I get that's a hard thing to overcome too. But
Mm-hmm.
in order to get her drugs, she was selling her children for
Mm-hmm.
money to get drugs. That to me does not sound like a victim. She's not a victim of somebody's violence, a victim of some, she wasn't a victim is what I could justify that you had to pick yourself, which I can't imagine picking myself over my kids, but even still, I get some
Yeah.
people might have to do that.
Yeah.
In her case, I don't think that was it. I don't, you wanted drugs and you didn't care how you were going to get them. And you're not a victim if that's if that's the choice you're making, in my opinion. And I understand drugs are hard. I completely understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But most addicts I know don't, they only cause harm to themselves. The most harm they cause to somebody else is probably stealing from them. And
Hmm.
that's a lot different than a physical violent, sexual violent that this mom was causing on her babies, on her sweet, innocent little babies.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
yeah, and I see that more often than true punishments coming. I see people getting pretty light consequences for their actions when they're the ones causing the bad. And that's
Right.
so frustrating. That is so frustrating.
Right. Right. Hopefully that child was removed and put into state care, I would hope.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And hopefully, the person who committed the atrocity, were they dealt with or did they get away? Did they not catch the person that
Yeah,
was?
that was multiple people. It was four people, a woman and three man, and they did I actually don't know how much punishment they got, but I do know that they got jail time for that. So there is that, but it didn't, to me, how it was presented wasn't like it's a life sentence or, I mean,
Right, right.
this was two children. It was a 3 and 4 year old.
Okay.
And the these two children's life are definitely forever going to be affected in some way. And those people eventually don't have to face that consequence anymore. They get to act like their life is normal. This mom, actually, the kids were taken, but she has the right to earn them back. And
Mm,
and she was kind of working on that path. I mean, she was, doing what she needed to do to the minimum.
right.
But yeah, so they could be back with her. I'm not sure. She had 2 years to fix herself, and then she can get her kids back. And I
Mm.
think after that, you don't get kids anymore. You just, in my opinion, you shouldn't.
Right. Yeah, no, that's so egregious, and so heinous that I think I could see that pipeline for other things, but for something like that, that's unforgivable. That
Yeah,
yeah.
to me, if she was just a drug addict struggling that way, I could see that if she turns her life around and she figures it out and she gets help, yes, you deserve to have your kids back. That's a hard thing to go through. But when you hurt your children and look at them as nothing more than useless objects, there's no going back, in my
Yeah.
opinion. There's
Yeah.
no going back.
Yeah, I don't see how you can reconcile that either. I don't see how that can be. Now, a question, and this is more of a nuts and bolts kind of question, as a 3 and 4 year old subjected to something like that, um, is it better that they were that age versus 12 or 14, where we're a little more psychologically formed and we have that maybe higher introspective capabilities or metacognitive capabilities that we can really process what just happened to us, whereas maybe, and I'm not trying to mitigate what happened to the child, but that could be perceived as again in the amygdala or whatever, that this was just a predator, a violent attack, and that you had less reasoning capacity to try to make sense of, not that there was any sense to it. Does that make sense, that question? Like,
Yeah, and
is it more
you kind of
humane
hit
that it
it.
happened at such a young age?
Yeah, you kind of hit it on the head. The age part doesn't matter too much.
Okay.
I mean, because it could happen to you right now,
Yeah.
and your brain isn't gonna just be okay, like, oh, I understand what happened, therefore I'm okay.
Right.
I wish it was that easy. You
Well, I
just
think it
talk
would be
about
more
it.
right, more traumatic for me that I was lynched and burned and things like that. But
Yeah,
a 3 year old, they know what's going on, obviously. So, but I'm just wondering if their
yeah.
ability to psychological sophistication to really import what happened. So yeah. So I'm sorry. I
So
didn't want.
with so kind of like no matter what age it happens, when you break the safety side of your brain, it's hard to get out of. I like to think of it more as like going back to your primal instincts. And it's really hard to you can't I don't even know how to phrase this, but it is that child is now functioning mostly on primal instincts only, and you will see that for so long in their life. A lot of kids who we label as ADHD is not actually ADHD. It is a trauma response.
Okay.
And that is, so this is something that you think, oh, this kid just seems like a normal kid with ADHD, but that is their brain trying to, squirrel brain. There's a predator here. I got to go on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And I'm sure that these children are still to this day, so they're probably 8 to 9 years old at this point. They're probably still struggling, even if they got help every single day. It's so hard to rebuild that level of trauma or like overcome that severity of trauma, no matter what age they were at. Minor traumas, it's kind of interesting how one bad trauma can actually affect your behaviors worse than multiple bad traumas. So in some cases, a severe history of abuse where it's ongoing multiple abuses is actually going to be easier to handle than somebody who's only had maybe 1 or 2 times where the event took place. And that is because as those multiple traumas had taken place, their brain is constantly adapting to survival mode and refixing itself into what's going to get them through to the next thing. As where only 1 or 2 traumas kind of just breaks your brain where it hasn't figured out how to handle those situations. So those ones are actually a little bit harder to deal with. I found personally, and from, some of the research I've done, that those one-time traumas can affect you so much more severely.
Okay.
Not saying people out there traumatizing people, just stop it, don't do it more, and thinking you're helping.
Yeah, right. Push through it,
Yeah. Just
No.
yeah. So yeah, it's just really interesting how much somebody with multiple traumas could actually end up doing better and getting over it, because your brain tries to adapt. It really tries to fix itself the whole time. But you need, even let's look back at like something simple like handwriting. You don't just do it once and know how to do it. Your brain gets the concept maybe after one time, but it hasn't like figured out how to actually do it every time. So you need that multiple times of doing it until your brain finally adapts on how to get it right. So that's kind of the same with trauma. Those multiple traumas, your brain finally adapts on how to handle the trauma. So, and then sometimes therapy, we have to undo that and find the healthier way. But behavior wise, these multiple traumas, you might be a really good employee because of those multiple traumas. Sadly, you might be a really good life partner because of childhood traumas, multiple childhood traumas, as where somebody who's only had a few is going to be a little harder to control.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder for them to control, and they're the ones who are more likely to go out and try to seek substance abuse to cover their trauma, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like seeking danger constantly. Impulsive, that's the word. They're going to be a little bit more impulsive. Maybe bouncing from relationship to relationship because their brain hasn't figured out how to work around that trauma, and they're just doing the thing that feels good right now. That's the thing I have to do. So it's really interesting how the brain works. It's so fascinating to me. We'll never really know how it works, but we're always learning something more every day, and it's so cool.
Yeah, no, and that's a life quest of mine is cognitive science and how this system works, the human system works, and cognitively mostly, but somatically as well, because there's a deep tie there. Now, when you worked with those children, the 3 and 4-year-old, I kind of want to help the audience, maybe catharsis. When you work with them, was it just soul crushing, like you knew that this was an irreparable event, or did you see in working with them that there may be a light shining in somehow, or what, if you can share that, what would you assess that, again, like the boy in the cage, was there something there that you feel like the opportunity, if conditions are right, that child could
Yeah,
could.
those kids, I think if the condition was right, definitely high hopes. I don't think that I think with giving their mom multiple chances for them, I don't think their condition's ever going to be right.
Okay.
I think they're going to have to be adults and figure out for themselves that things aren't okay and then get help and basically, being in their 20s and starting from beginning versus what they're when I had them and they're just these sweet, innocent little babies. And they were so, that was one, to me, that was one of the harder ones that I would come home crying from because you see these beautiful, perfect little angels. I'm going to cry right now, even.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and you can't imagine how somebody would want to do that to them.
Right.
And then I also have to try to show them how beautiful the world is and how great the world can be.
Yeah,
And they've seen the literally the worst of the
yeah.
worst that we can have in America. They've seen
They
it.
lived it. Yeah, they
They
lived it.
lived it. And I have
Yeah.
to tell them, no, 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 it's
Yeah,
okay.
it's
Let's do
okay.
this. Yeah, this fun thing. Oh, my eyes are all teary. I'm sorry.
No, no, no,
But
that's
yeah, we
okay. This
have
is
to do
heavy.
this. Yeah, it's and I just my brain cannot cope. It cannot process how somebody would ever be that
Yeah.
sick and twisted, and like how you can get joy from something like that.
Well,
I just
I suspect the perpetrators are reenacting. They're reliving, and I'm not making any excuses, but I
right,
suspect something happened when they were children, and they're just, they're doing it to someone else now, and
right.
that's not cathartic. That's not cathartic or healing. That's just, yeah, that's psychopathy,
It's
or yeah, it's just
unfortunately that is a lot of it is something bad happened to you that you didn't process, and so now you're but the thing is too is like maybe theirs was a lot minor than what they did to these children,
mm.
but they also start off at that much minor level and it's no longer feeling good to do the minor thing. So we got to
So they got to
elevate
ramp
it.
it up. Yeah,
Now we got to elevate it more and elevate it more. And that's kind of when it comes to substances, that's the same thing. You
yeah,
use it and it feels good now, but now that same amount or that same frequency
yeah.
isn't cutting it anymore. And so you do more and more. So it's that same kind of mentality. Your own brain is a drug, it's
Right,
producing
right.
drugs for itself. So,
Yeah.
it could be that, but I still in my brain I just can't imagine ever looking at these beautiful little angels and thinking, let's do some damage. Like
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't I can't understand it. I would not be somebody if I had to work with somebody who did that, I don't think I would want I couldn't do this job, I don't think. And bless the therapist who can work with the the violent people, the rapists. Bless them. I think it's needed. Those people need help too. But I emotionally can't because I'd be so angry at you the whole time.
Well, and that's the damning thing about sociopathy, psychopathy, all these kind of things, and dark vulnerable triad is that, it's circular, and that you, you and I don't know psychology, so forgive my ignorance when I say all of this, but it's like trying to rehabilitate someone like that. There has to be a light on inside, a
Right.
flicker of humanity that can, use the cognitive capacity of empathy to understand that suffering that is occurring, and then the feedback comes in, and you're like, shit, I don't want that for myself, and again, with
Yeah.
sociopathy and psychopathy, I'm stimulated and turned on by that person's suffering. So that's a huge mountain to overcome. And yeah, like you
Right.
said, bless the therapist that can break through on that, because it's just so dark and just almost irrevocable. I mean, again, I don't know anything, but just in trying to intuit it, it just seems almost and you know, I won't claim to have had a traumatic childhood, but I have a lineage on one side of my family, and I refer to my childhood as a tedious Machiavellian treachery, and it was a line of those people who were
Yeah.
Machiavellian, sadistic, psychotic, nasty, nasty people, and it's funny you said dyslexia in another podcast and and similar to ADHD symptoms, because I'm all of that. I was diagnosed with dyslexia as a child, and I, as you can tell, I'm hyperactive at 55 years of age. But I kind of use alchemy to convert that into a kind of superpower where I take
Yeah.
my neurosis and my hyperactive nature and I channel it, and I try to, volunteer for things and go, do stuff that's creative or productive, instead of, being what I could have become, which could have been very dark, and
Yeah,
nasty.
yeah.
So,
And that's the easy side too. Like people don't realize how easy it is to fall into the dark because it's more instantly
Yeah.
gratifying. You don't have to put a lot of effort into it. You don't have to put a lot of emotional care into it. It's just like not, just going out and doing whatever, and whatever the consequences are, I don't care. And
Yeah.
that's the easy way, but it's really hard to do good, especially when around you has shown you like, hey, come do this fun stuff. Who cares
Mhm.
the consequences? So
Yeah. Yeah. And they're truly occupying, and I'm very cynical in a sense with victim consciousness or victim identity, but they are genuinely occupying a victim identity that to me, that some people may have had less adverse histories and they fall into a victim identity because then you can just, oh, well, it's not me and, I can, cash out of this kind of responsibility or, it's easier for me to be indignant about things because I am the victim. But when they were subjected to something that shut them down or broke them or whatever, that I could see they're genuinely living that role or that identity of being a victim, and it's like, well, I'm not necessarily entitled, but I am going to act this way because this is who I am, and I
right.
the world owes me, whatever that is, whatever's going on there. Um, I know we've been at it for about an hour and 25 minutes, so maybe we'll bring this one in for a landing, and maybe after the Wolf Fest or at some point later into 2025 we can come back and talk about Wolf Fest and maybe other things. We won't have to
Right.
go
Yeah, that'd be
do
cool.
yeah, we got it out this conversation, some of the things you have to deal with, but I do have one more question for you, and then I'd like if there's anything you want to like sort of bring to a close on this aspect of your life being a therapist and a clinician. So and having shared two stories that I appreciate you sharing that are heavy and very serious, what do therapists do, people who are in the trenches, to, like you said, to alleviate the PTSD and the horror of what you know and what you have worked with? How do you um, stay grounded and put together? Yeah, and not just
Oh
go,
yeah.
"Ugh." Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. I'll be honest. Sometimes I don't stay together. I'm
Okay.
in a pretty good place now. I have my husband is an amazing support, and but I really haven't been in a bad place for a while, thankfully, because of the support I have around myself. But that's not always, like, when you see a kid hurting so bad, it's hard for me, and it's hard for most people, I think, to not hurt with them. And I am so empathetic. And one of my teenagers also so empathetic. We absorb everybody's
Mhm.
everything all the time. You're
Mhm.
happy, we're happy.
Yeah.
You're destroyed, we're destroyed.
Right, right.
And it's really hard to manage that sometimes, but really surrounding yourself with the positive, especially when you're empath. If you're surrounded by happiness and you're going to absorb that happiness, then your life is going to be happy. It's kind of
Yeah,
wonderful that way.
right.
So, I really set myself up on accident. I didn't plan it this way, but I found the perfect match for me and my husband, and I kind
Okay.
of raised amazing children. And so I got the things. I'm comfortable. I'm full of gratitude for all the things I have. And so it's so easy for me to just like look around and be happy, and I'm not saying it's always, but most of the time, to just be like, wow, a few years ago I didn't have this nice house that we live in, or
Okay.
and kind of focus on those positives. Using the techniques that we use with clients too. Sometimes I will find something that I tried with the client and I'm like, oh my God, I need to be doing that for me as well, and
Mhm.
using that too. So it's kind of frustrating in a way when you're a therapist or a psychologist that you have endless amount of tools that you know how to use for others, but your brain's like, I know why that works, so it's not going to work for me. But
Mhm.
sometimes you just start using them anyways, and they help out a lot for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And as was noted on another interview that I watched of you when I was researching you, that you have your irons and some fires, and you were part of the production of a film, and you have a you have your practice, and then you have was it a guinea pig rescue that you
Oh
do?
yeah, I do. I
Yeah,
have a guinea
I'll have
pig
all that down
rescue.
below. Yeah, so and just like my gardening that keeps me from getting too frazzled. Is this cathartic for you? Is this also, and Wolf Media Fest? I mean, is this something that you can feel like you have some creative
Yeah.
output to the world that's positive and, affectively? healthy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think being able to express myself, I'm in my 40s, and it's only been the last few years that I feel like I can truly just express myself and not care like being
Hmm.
judged. I think a lot of people feel that way when they're writing, or,
Okay.
like, don't look at my project till it's finished. Like now I'm finally to a point where I don't care. I'm like, come check out my half done thing, and tell me what you think. So I've really been able to express myself more creatively, but I have always kept myself busy at every point in my life. I always have a lot going on, and I think that's part of my way of distracting from. I'm not saying it's the healthiest thing to do, but it is a positive way that I keep myself busy, because you can't really focus on the bad if you have something good coming up all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's like one of my things. And how can you feel so sad when you have 40 guinea pigs loving on you? Like it's hard to do, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and
I'm
they're just so
sorry, but that's just
stinky,
the visual on that.
right? And we get these. So we are a sanctuary, so they come to
Okay.
us forever, and we don't rehome them or anything for
Okay.
their own benefit.
Okay.
But some of them come to us really sickly, and we get to fatten them up. And like, how fun is
Oh,
that to have?
yeah.
We had one in a wheelchair. I think when I first met you, she was still in a wheelchair. She's not in a wheelchair anymore. We
Oh,
got her
good.
where she's um her back legs are stiff, but she can stand on them and kind of like peg leg, pirate walk with her,
Okay.
her legs down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's moving in the right direction. And it's like, how do you focus on the negative when you see this
The
positive
result.
all the time? And
Yeah.
yeah, and we have so many piggies right now, and they're so stinking cute. They just make my
Yeah.
heart happy. But
Yeah.
I wrote a children's book with my well, I wrote a children's book a while ago, oh, maybe 2 years ago, not like significantly long ago. But the main character in it is a fox and named Luxon, and my son's name is Luxon Fox Wolfheart. So
Okay.
we actually sort of animated that and put it on my personal YouTube channel a while ago, where he got to do the voicing of the characters.
Oh, neat.
Um, and like that was just such a fun project for, I when I wrote that story, it was supposed to be for him. And then we published it, and then now he got to do the voice acting. So it's become like this way for my children to get involved, my family to get to express themselves too, and something that turned into a thing we get to do together, and it's fun. So we have like all these little outlets that just keep us busy and bring us joy. And I think like if everybody could do that, what a great world we would live in. Just find the thing that makes you happy that doesn't
Yeah.
cause harm to somebody else. Like,
Yes, please.
that's the important part of it. But
Yes, yes. Everybody is happy.
yeah, yeah.
Everything's consensual. Yeah, exactly. A lot of
Yep.
little asterisks at that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
a
yeah.
little asterisk on there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, true good and beautiful is like the Neoplatonic thing, the calling card. It's like if it is
Right.
true to a virtuous nature, a nature of positive affect, positive, all those things, and good, and that it's genuinely like across the board good. Everybody can agree and beautiful that you are creating something that a lot of people can relate to as being beautiful. So maybe we could anchor it into
Yeah,
that
yeah.
domain. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Jacqueline, we covered a lot of territory in this
Yeah, we did.
conversation. Before we stop recording, anything else you want to message out to the audience before we say goodbye on this one? And like I said, after you recover from Wolf Media Fest, maybe in May or June, we can come back and have another chat, talk about how things went, and set you up for the next one. So
Yeah, I would love that. And I'm excited for you to be a part of the festival too. It's going to be great.
yeah, I'm looking
I
forward
think
to that.
so. A lot of times when I end my public speakings, I do like to tell people that I'm not your therapist, but I am a therapist. And so if you need to reach out to me, please do that. I will help you find a therapist.
Okay.
And I do my best to make sure that we don't actually cause harm. So if you come to me with very saying suicidal thoughts and such, my first, I'm going to do best practice as I can to keep you safe,
Mm,
and so that it doesn't affect you long term. Because sometimes there's actions I could take that are legal that I should, call this place, call that, but it might cause you to lose your job or something. I don't want to do that. I'm here to
yeah,
help. I'm
yeah.
going to find the people who can help you best. And so I do like to usually end my public speakings with that. But I'm going to do something I haven't ever said before. This is how I used to drop my kids off at my teenagers. They're teenagers and adults now, but when I drop them off at school, I used to always kiss them when I drop them off, and I would say, be smart, be good, be helpful, be kind, do your best to help others do their best. And I don't know why I don't end all my sayings like all my speeches like that, because I just love that. I feel like that was our life philosophy, and that it's such a good way for everybody to just kind of keep those in the back of your head at all times. So,
No, that's a beautiful mantra, and I'm glad you instilled that on your children because we're a community, whether we like it or not,
right.
and how we radiate out, again, our affective states, our intentions, our behaviors, it matters. It really matters. And what's the cliche, light versus heat, It's like
Right,
let's
right.
be light and not heat. So what you just said was perfect. And I appreciate that, and I think that's ideal for bringing this one in for a landing and letting it go out in the world. And yeah, hopefully. And I think my last guest, I get confused, middle age. We talked about trauma too, and she was a therapist. And if somebody's watching this, please, know you're a worthy human being. You are worthy of love. You're worthy of care. And that can be self-care or care from others. Again, we are a community. We are all very much connected.
Yes,
Know that there's hope. And yeah, again, if you reach out to Jacquelynn, she will do the right thing and try to, move you in the right direction. So, all right,
absolutely.
Jacquelynn, I very much appreciate this conversation. It was
Yes, thank
great.
you so much.
So, all right, and it's not like we're not going to talk afterwards because, like I
Right,
said,
right.
I want to jump in and help where I can in Wolf Media Fest. So, to the YouTube audience, thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate your audience, your participation as an audience, I should say. And I will say goodbye to you after I stop record. But to the YouTube folks, take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.